Welcome everybody to an episode of Grid Down Comms Up at the Bench. Today, which happens to be Amron's annual T-Rex exercise weekend, we're going to do a little bit of an off-grid antenna build. I have previously been using a QRP Guys 49-to-1 unun, and you've probably seen it in some of my other videos, for my field portable station. Well, I've lost it. I can't figure out what I did with it. It's probably lost in my truck somewhere, but it may also be in the woods. I don't know. So I decided that I am going to replace it with one of K6ARK's 49-to-1 end-fed antennas. Wanted to try out his kit. It's a super teeny antenna, which is perfect for what I want to do. In the meantime, I've been using one of my own homebrew 49-to-1 antennas, but this one's a little bigger and will take 100 watts if need be. This one is only good for the little bit of power that my Elecraft puts out, but weighs a teeny fraction. So we're gonna put this together today. I also want to show you guys a little something else I picked up here. I picked up a USB soldering iron. I'm kind of digging this little guy. I was looking for something that was an alternative to the butane soldering irons I've used in the field, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I saw these, and this one popped up on sale for Amazon Prime Days, and I decided to pick one up. It comes with a bunch of different soldering iron tips. We're going to use this little conical one today for our antenna build, and put this to another test. So far I've been using it and I like it. It comes with a little USB-C cable to a XT60, and I tossed an XT60 to Anderson power pole adapter in here so I could run it off of any of the batteries in my radio gear to make a quick field repair. And while it's not quite as powerful as some of my big butane irons, it's plenty powerful so far for everything I've tried it on, short of PL259s and big connectors like that. But today I'm actually going to power it off of a little USB battery pack because it works just fine off that too. And since we're doing T-Rex and we are grid down, I figure let's do a grid down antenna build, because stuff breaks when the grid is down. So I'm going to set this stuff out of the way. We're going to open up the K6ARK pack and see what is in it. So what do we have in the package? We do our sort of unboxing. So you get your instructions for building it on their website. They don't send instructions. You just look it up on the site. It's pretty straightforward. Get some heat shrink tubing here as needed, and a little piece of poly pipe for winding an inductor on your antenna if you so desire. Some people will do this to improve the performance on like 20, 15, and 10 meters. I may or may not do this later, because normally I hang out on 40 and 80 with the occasional jaunt up to 50. So you have a little BNC connector, a very small ferrite, some wire, some heat shrink, little piece of wire here. My soldering iron is beeping at me. I'm not sure what it's beeping at me for, but it's beeping at me. So that, some heat shrink, a very, very tiny capacitor, and a circuit board that all this stuff goes on. So I'm going to start and do this a little bit out of order, I think. And we're going to wind the inductor first. Their recommendation is a 3-turn primary and anywhere from 19 to 24 turns on the secondary. I'll probably do 24. More turns tends to produce better results on lower bands. since I tend to use the lower bands for emergency communications, and I'm less interested in DX and distant communications. We'll do it that way. Now, his way that he shows in his instructions of winding a 49-to-1 is a bit different than the way I have done it in the past, like on this antenna. So I'm going to follow his instructions, and we're going to see how it turns out. And I'm going to unplug my soldering iron here so it will stop making noise at us. So till we're ready to use it. It's like, hey, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, I know you're there. All right, so we're going to do a 3-turn primary. So that's 1 turn. And I'll try to keep this in frame for you guys, but I can't make any promises. And we'll probably speed this up in the video so you guys don't have to watch me do this over and over again. Two turns. Because each time we go through the center, we have a turn. All right. 3 turns. So that is our primary. We're going to make a little loop, and we're going to twist this. This is our tap. And I normally feed mine from the tap, but in his design, you ground the tap and you feed from this leg. So now we're going to do 24 more turns. And 24. Now, because we measure twice and cut once, I'm going to go ahead and recount these just to be sure. All right, we have 25 turns, and I'm going to set this aside for a minute, and we're going to do some more assembly here. So instructions say that we need to take this piece of wire, we need to cut it in half because it's the little piece that we connect our counterpoise and air radiating element to. So clip that in half. And we're going to strip back just a teensy tiny little bit of wire. So the instructions say that we need to solder these 2 pads right here together. I believe that this shorts what's labeled counterpoise together to be the second output. If you wound this as like a 1-to-1 for a dipole, I kind of followed the traces, and it looks like that's what that does. It connects the counterpoise to the ground point here. And then we need to connect our capacitor right here on the bottom. So I am not sure exactly how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but I'm going to try to do this in a way that you guys can watch. So first thing, we're going to connect the dots. So turn this on. One of the kind of cool, fun things about this, you guys can see, when I turn this on, it's going to go from 21 Celsius to 300 Celsius pretty quick. It just dropped into work mode, and off it goes. And we are melting solder, I believe. It says 250. I need to bump myself up to 300 degrees. That's a good point for us here, because that's a good place for us here today. And we're melting solder a whole lot faster than some of my other irons. So we're gonna melt a little blob of solder across those two, just like that. Just get the light right here. You guys can see we have a little blob there. All right, and next we need to attach our little bitty surface mount capacitor. And I know this is scary for a lot of folks who are new to doing soldering, because surface mount stuff is kind of scary. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of flux on this pad to make your life a little easier. We're going to take this little teeny tiny, you guys can see it, capacitor, and I'm going to get it out of this packing very carefully. All right. You guys can see we are soldered up on that side. We still got to do this side. So I'll just take a little solder here. Right there. We should be good to go. Okay. Looking pretty good. Now, it says we need to take our wire here and let me refer to the instructions. Okay, so we put that through for our counterpoise, and then the antenna side is going to go through from this side. So we'll put our antenna little whip through here, and this provides our strain relief. Okay, so now we've got that all nice and neat. Let's get it soldered in place. Wake up our iron. As soon as it gets back to 300 degrees, we'll be ready to go. Now we've got to set up our bowline here. So there's lots of different ways people deal with enameled wire. Personally, I tend to just heat it up a little bit with a little torch and use that to get the enamel insulation off of it. But like I said, everybody kind of has their own little preferred way of doing this. So this is our 3-turn primary, and this is our secondary. Separate those out just a little bit. And hang on a second while I clean these off. So the way I do it is basically just hit the ends of them a little bit with a little torch and burn the insulation, just like that. And then after you do that, you can take a piece of sandpaper and just kind of knock the remains of scuff the rest of it off. I'm going to go ahead and tin these with the soldering iron real quick, just to get them cleaned up before we put them in the circuit board. Got all that taken care of. Now we're going to solder that onto this. So we got to use the little indicating markers here that tell us we have out, ground, and in. So our out goes right here. I don't know if you guys can see this, but you see where it says out, ground, and in. I'm going to do this off camera, and then I'll be right back. So we got our in, our ground, and our out all the way over here. Very interested to see how this is going to turn out. Get yourself set up here with a little bit of space, because we're going to have to be able to get in there later and solder the pins on the BNC jack. So I don't want to smash this down too close. All right. Try to hold that still a little while we work. Okay, so you guys can see there, we are soldered up. And look pretty good. You got solder all the way through to the other sides of those through-hole connectors. So, looks pretty good. All right, we'll trim the excess off here. Okay. Now we've got to put our connector on. So it goes in just like this. They say don't push everything all the way through, because if you do, you can short things out on the coil side, which is probably true. So we're going to lift our coil up out of our way so we can work here. Just kind of show this to you guys what it looks like. I'm getting a little shadow in there, but you guys can kind of see how those are just barely in there. And what I'm going to do to start us with is I'm going to just put a little flux, because sometimes getting solder to stick to these connectors can be a little difficult. So I'm going to just put a little flux on that one, and I'm going to tack it in place with some solder here. And that's really not sticking. I kind of was afraid that might be the case. So what we're going to do to improve that problem, we're going to pull this back out for a minute. I'm going to take my file, and we're just going to go around these pins, and we're gonna scrape them up good. All right, do this again. Show this to you guys. All right, we are soldered up. Everything looks pretty good. I'm going to do a final inspection here. It says you can check, and you can check a 49-1 to find out if it's working by putting around a 2700 ohm, 3000 ohm resistor across the output, because that simulates an antenna, and see what it looks like on an antenna analyzer. And we're going to do that. All right, guys, got my vector network analyzer set up. We, after some digging, I found a resistor that's about 3000 ohms. It's a little more resistance than the 2400 that you'd probably check it with. But anyway, I soldered that in just to simulate an antenna, just to kind of see what we get here. I'm going to bring my network analyzer up here, see if you guys can watch and see. But as you can see, here at the very bottom of our sweep, if I can get it to come down here. All right, so here towards the very bottom of our sweep, we've got 53 ohms plus J, 630 milliohms. So very close to 50 ohms J0 at 4.6 megahertz. But you can see we kind of have a pretty decent sweep that's, understand what goes to 2-to-1 SWR there at 13 megahertz, because we're starting to pick up a bunch of inductive reactance. So a real wire antenna will probably reduce a little bit of that. And that's kind of our next step, is to put it on a actual wire and see what we get, because a wire has inductive and capacitive properties that will change the way this looks. But just with a resistor, and it's working. We'll see what we get when we put a wire up. All right, guys, you saw the results in the pictures of the VNA there. Antenna hanging up 6 feet or so off the ground, perfectly good on 40 meters, 20 meters. My antenna length wasn't long enough to do 80, so I couldn't test that. I'll have to do that at a later date. Probably usable with a little tuning down a little higher in the band, but that's it. This little bitty guy, perfect to add to the kit. I use some of these little banana connectors so I can pack that away and hook my antenna up to it easily like that. I've got to measure out another length of wire for this antenna, since the other length there lives with a different antenna. But anyway, we'll set it up. I'm using this silicone wire. This stuff is quite a bit stouter from DX Engineering. If you want something stronger, would recommend their 26 gauge stealth wire, but it is also not quite as soft. You can see it's got quite a bit of spring to it compared to the silicone. And I'm pretty gentle with the silicone. I like how easy it rolls up. So I take the risk of breaking it and having to replace it every once in a while over the stiffer wire in this case. Though I do use the stiffer wire on some other antennas that are heavier, like my 80-meter ones that have loading coils in them. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is a cool little antenna that literally packs away almost non-existent with your BNC cable for your radio. I mean, this thing is microscopic. I'm digging this. So I will test it out some more in the field, kind of let you guys know probably in a little short how it works. But so far, I'm digging it. So I will see you guys later.